Hi, very good morning to you. It's Gene from maverickstar Observatory. As you guys know, tomorrow is the 17th, very special day for us here at the Observatory. That's the day we take a magnetic reading of the location of the magnetic North Pole, relay it back to you guys with the TriMag system. We also pull some other data to look at intensity over and around the UK, to add to the website. But what I wanted to talk to you about is something that I think is going to come to your front doors, along with all what other things are happening. I'm sorry to say it's not good news. So, if you just want to not have your Sunday ruined by some bad news and, some upcoming events, which I guarantee are going to come round to us all at some point in these Western countries, then switch off. And I don't mind if that is the case. But for those of you that want to stick around, we're going to talk about a trend which has happened in a country called Lebanon, Beirut. And just to give you a little rundown of what happened, over the last 10 years, they've had their bank accounts froze. They can't touch that money, even if that money still exists in those accounts. It runs in the region of over 100 million that has been seized off the public. Their salaries have reduced from an average of $1,200 US now to around $80. Their electricity is, if they're lucky, a couple of hours every day, and that's why we're looking at this little picture here, because there are gangs that have set up in Lebanon with these green boxes, these containers. And what's inside there is actual generators, and you can see the fuel storage tank there for the generators. And what these guys do is sell electricity to the local neighbourhoods, and it's nothing short of little mafia groups that have set up there, running these little Ponzi electric scams for people, because there is no other way. The national grid is non-existent. We have been in an unforetold and unadmitted recession for at least the last 12 months. When any politician has been asked about what's going on, they will always point the finger in a different direction. We are definitely in not just a national here in the UK or the US or Canada, Australia, Mexico. We are in a global downturn right now, and it is the worst that has ever been seen on record. It has not been admitted, and the reason why they won't admit it is because as soon as you admit that the world is in a recession and the true nature of things, how bad they are, you will make matters 10 times worse. What you will cause is an avalanche. So that's why they won't admit this. But I think you gather, as well as I do, that there is a crisis taking place globally right now. And I knew there was going to be a crisis come about at some point, just simply because anyone with any intellect would know that if you are living in an increasing technological advancing culture globally, then you are going to be reducing jobs. And if you're doing nothing about reducing population numbers, then you are at some point going to end up with a surplus of labour. And the knock-on effects will be supply and demand. It will mean labour costs will go down, and people will be forced to work for less than 1/10 of what they're on right now. And that is exactly what is happening in Lebanon. Just to give you an idea of the documentary I was watching this morning, 5 people went to a restaurant, and in Lebanese lira, for just salads that these 5 people had, it cost over $500,000 lira. It was equivalent to about $50 US. That's how decreased the Lebanon lira has become, and it's getting worse and worse for these people. But my point is this, is that in order to survive, it doesn't matter if you're going to be willing to accept 1/10 of the normal income you have, you will do it to survive. There are a lot of people in Lebanon that are solely dependent on charity and free food. If they never got it, they would starve to death. The Medicare in this country is severely penalising the people because they just simply can't afford it. You know, people that need insulin can't get it. So unless it's donated to them. So that gives you an idea of what has happened. But let me tell you something. If you think our modern Western worlds that are not experiencing this right now will not adapt this business model, then think again. I'm going to show you in a bit the British National Grid and how they're producing the electricity, but I also want to point out something new. Let's go over there, in fact, let's have a look at this, because I think it's really interesting. But you get the picture here. Load of generators in boxes being run by, you know, gangs of small-time businessmen, you know, profiteering on the downfalls of everybody not having electricity regularly, and these are making up the markets. But the thing is that this runs right up to the level of governments, because Lebanon imports diesel and other fuels, and of course, in order for these freight ships to turn up in the ports, you know, governments have to issue you know, like a visa or a pass or a clearance for that, and then, you know, they take a little bit off the top, and then, you know, this fuel gets distributed to just a few companies, and one of these companies is one of these one of these guys is running. You know, everybody else around the town is poor, but he's got a brand new Jag and a Rolex watch on his wrist, so he's obviously rinsing the money out of the poorest people in his community. You know, this is something that we're going to see happen in our Western worlds, because this is already what they're trying to do. Let me show you what they've done different about the British National Grid and how open they are. So I know Robert Watkins would hate me for showing you this at this point in time, but you know what, it is what it is. Right now, you know, the National Grid believe that they are generating 13.5 gigawatts of the demand that we need, which totals to 68%. We're using 14.1% fossil fuels, 30.1% other energy, either biomass or nuclear, and of course we are exporting 12.2% to interconnectors. What they've did here, and I'm sure Robert's already picked up, is added the frequency chart onto this, and he will know completely why they've did this, because this is the scam that they're going to be pulling in the not too distant future. Basically, they want to do away with gas combined cycles and coal-powered generation of electricity. Obviously today we're not using the coal power stations to produce the electricity, and they're stating that the most of our electricity is being generated by wind. If you look at the time up there on the top left, it's just gone 8:05 in the morning. They reckon the cost per megawatt hour is £1, and the frequency is at 49.9 hertz. You see, we operate at 50 hertz over here in the UK, and the reason why they've included, now this is a new bar added to the National Grid Live, the reason why they've added the frequency is because when frequency drops, they will cut the electric off, basically, and they have promised that we are going to start seeing power cuts. So we're going to start seeing, just like in Lebanon, is right now, you know, little companies with power generation facilities or units exploiting people for their electricity in the UK. You know what, Boris Johnson, what you did was clearly and utterly sell out your nation, and you shouldn't just be put in jail for what you've done. You should be hung and swung off of London Bridge, because you have sold us all out. And this, guys, is not just something you know, solely related to the United Kingdom. This is the new trend. We're going to keep exposing even more criminal behaviour as we go on from this point in time. And I'm really pleased that Joe Biden mentioned Armageddon, because it just puts things into perspective, and we all know what times by the Bible that we're living in. Clearly, if we are seeing famine, diseases spread like they are, and a whole new different behaviour of people emerging in this time, then it is exactly as Joe Biden explained. It's Armageddon, isn't it? Who wants to live in such a world where we are treated worse than slaves? I think if we just worked out of £1 what we paid in taxes when we spent that money and when we earned that money, we would end up probably at this point in time with less than 10 pence, 1/10 of that pound in actual spending power. It's getting worse for the most poorest in this country, and we're supposed to be one of the richest countries in the world, yet people in this country can't afford to put the heating on and feed themselves. And we see this happening all around the world. Who is the boogeyman they're blaming it on? Putin. It's Putin's fault for invading Ukraine. Absolute rubbish. It's our government's faults for not controlling the amount of electricity that we're charged for. When they put the cost of electricity up, they put everything across the range up in costs, because everybody requires power. Your farmer, if his fuel goes up because the cost of electricity to refine the fuel has gone up, then his crops are going up in value, and therefore your spending power at the shop is going down. And if he needs fertilizers, well, that's an energy intensive consuming industry. So if fertilizers are going up, maybe farmers are going to say, well, maybe we can get away with not using that fertilizer. The problem is there is a vicious cycle that we've all been used to running on to maximize profit out of every last drop of industry. It means that, we are going to start to see people trip up. You see, what farmers don't do anymore in this country, and I bet it's the same for other countries, is they don't let the land lie up so that it naturally recovers. After a cycle of, say, 5 years, they'll leave it for 1 year where there's no crops on it. It just gives the land time to recover some of those nutrients. They might have planted, nitrogen-rich, meadow flowers in there for 1 year. That would help fix some of that nitrogen back into the soil. They don't do it no more. What they do is, it's called forcing, and farmers are really concerned about it in this country, and they must be worldwide, because if you keep taking nutrients out of the ground, then there's going to come a point in time where your yields of crop are going to go down. You're not going to end up with 1 kilo potatoes. You're going to end up with perhaps 25 gram potatoes, but lots of them. So what we're seeing is the repercussion of bad husbandry with regards to land. So things are going to get worse, that's for sure. We have just the worst right now politicians running our countries, and when they allowed the abuse of power generation to happen like Boris Johnson has in the UK, and not just him, globally, when they allowed this to happen, they forced what we are all now experiencing on us all, a recession, clear as daylight. If you want to know what actually has happened that has caused all this, it's the increase in energy. Because if you run a factory, you've had to put your prices up because of the cost of energy. If you are a food producer, your cost of fuel's gone up because the cost of refinery's gone up. And you can just bring it back to that single point, and it's going to get much worse, because the reason why here in the UK they have added the frequency chart there is so that they can show you that when the frequency drops, because they are relying more on solar power and renewables as opposed to gas generation, which obviously they have fetish and hate because it produces CO2, which, you know, I have explained to you and showed you guys as honestly as I possibly could. If you are one of these people that drive a Tesla and you believe that you are doing something good for the environment, you're dreaming, because I don't think that these people that drive these cars actually know what they've done. First of all, they've supported child and women labour in the most harshest conditions, like in Bolivia, where we mine cobalt for these batteries. Open cast mines, which are destroying the environment over there. First of all, you don't realise that. You don't realise how much CO2 went into making your car to start with in that battery. And thirdly, you don't understand that you're buying the electricity at most times off peak in the night time, where there is no solar power being generated. If you're lucky, there'll be wind power generated, but most likely your car is being charged up off electricity which has been formulated from a combination of cycles of gas. So you're burning CO2 like a bastard. So, you know, you're not an environmentalist. Makes me laugh. We've had protests here in the UK over the last few days from that rebellion group. Won't even mention the name because they're obviously not in touch with reality. You know, they want us to completely abolish CO2, and I don't know where they got their education to think that, you know, 0.4% of anything in an atmosphere is going to cause anything. You know, I would have more respect for these people if they was crying about H2O, which is another trimolecule, and can be considered a greenhouse gas, but nobody talks about the abundance of water vapour in our atmosphere. That's because there is nothing you could do about that in any case, and the quantity is massive. You know, it is the added water vapour which is condensing on, cloud seeding particles, which are derived from cosmic rays in the first place, that has caused so much climate problems that we've got right now. It's been completely pushed to the side, and they're just concentrating on CO2 because they're making hand over fist tons and tons of money. That's why we here in the UK, the energy companies have made that much money in profit this year. They don't simply know what to do with it. They're absolutely gloating about that fact. You know, at the same time, we have pensioners in our country, and you will know in other countries as well, and you can just imagine how much they are suffering in countries like Lebanon that can't afford to put the heating on. Simple human being things that we have appreciated even in the dark days. You know, what they've done here in the UK is unbelievable. It's criminal into some respects, because they've issued smoke-free zones. So you couldn't even, if you was freezing to death, light up some old wood that you managed to gather together to keep yourself warm. That's barbaric. You know, we live in the 20th century. We enjoyed these things 8,000, 10,000 years ago. The simplest things, like a fire, you know, primitive things like a fire, and now it's outlawed and illegal. It's unbelievable. There is no common sense anymore being dispensed from any of these government departments. And, you know, as well as I do, it doesn't matter whether, you know, you're here in the UK, Liberal Democrats, Conservatives and Labour Party, you know, they're all as bad as each other. It doesn't matter which one gets in, the next one's going to screw us over just as much as the first one, or the ones that are there now. You know, same in America with the Democrats and the Republicans. It doesn't make any difference. They are screwing us down to the ground, impoverishing millions of us so that a few of them can enjoy, you know, £1 billion yacht, a lavish apartment, you know, a house with thousands of hectares of land. There is nothing logical about anything to do right now with this system that is in place. And, you know, it needs scrapping. You know, I know that the capital system originally was working. You know, if you work hard, and you work harder than somebody else, and you earn, you know, you spend more hours working, then you earn more. And if you want to buy a bigger house because you've put the extra effort in, you can. It doesn't make no difference anymore, because here in this country over the last 20-30 years, they've encouraged now the housewife to go to work. She used to stay at home, look after the house. The husband went out there and earned, you know, all the money necessary for the house. It could be done. Now it can't be done. You need your wife to help you because the salary is low. And I'm telling you now, and I'm not kidding you, soon you will need your children to do that. You know, this is not uncommon in other countries in the world. We see the children in Africa going to work in the mines to get cobalt, smashing rocks up with hammers all day long, you know, just so that they can earn a couple of dollars, bring that back to the parents, and then, you know, all they will accumulate after, you know, dad's gone to work, mum's gone to work, and the kids have gone to work, is a couple of bucks so that they could buy a bit of rice and just live for the next day. If we were really smart and intelligent human beings, and we didn't have the suppressive behaviour of these greedy fuckers in our world, we would all be thriving right now. Do you know that? Because, you know what, we can cry to God as much as we want. You know, God, if he answers our prayers, he will say, you know what, everything you need, I give you, and he's on your earth right now. It is the way. It is simply dispensed. Yeah. You know what? You know what? I don't know why they put up the electric to 2 times now, almost a third of what we was paying last year. But you know what I wish they would do? Fucking send it through the roof. Make it impossible for anyone to have any. Because we'd all stick our fucking fingers up at them. It really annoys me as a scientist to see our resources being squandered and being raped from us the way they are. Because God left everything on this planet for us all to enjoy. And you know what? All we needed to do is dispense it fairly. We could end world poverty in an hour if we really wanted to. If we utilised the technology that we've got right now, we could resolve most of the world's issues. It's just that they don't want it. Just a few greedy pigs, always at the trough, pushing out all the little runts of the litter so that they can fill up their bellies 6 times fold, whilst everybody else starves. We could change the world if we really wanted to. We just need to get to that point of where we're prepared to make those changes. Energy. You know what? Everyone could have electricity. You know, the governments are there, you know, well, supposed to be there to regulate energy companies like the National Grid and all the companies that make up all these renewables, nuclear power, all the different companies. They could say, if you don't fucking behave yourself, we'll nationalise your company, we'll make a compulsory purchase and take the company off you, because we are standing up for, you know, the British people, for the American people, for the Canadian people, for the Mexican people, for the Australian, New Zealand people, for the Europeans. We could do that. Instead, what we're seeing right now, and trust me, we're just starting to see the cusp of the weather change. Watch what happens in Germany in another 2 months. Because people right now in Germany are scavenging wood piles, getting ready for the winter. Shameful state we're living in. But anyhow, guys, I'm going to be back tomorrow with the latest position of the magnetic North Pole. Please join me. You know, you can become a subscriber to us. I'm sure what we talk about on this channel has value, merit, and definitely needs to be talked about. And the more people that understand what's going on, the more they can prepare for what they need to in whatever way or form that they can. So it's important that this information gets out to people. There's a link down there if you want to help fund our observatory. Only a few people do. If we have 4,000 people today view this video, there'll just be a couple of people chip in a couple of bucks. It's nothing big, never is. But we're trying to push those books as far as we can here at the observatory, and do as much as what we can possibly do. We're not doing too bad. When you compare us to other channels on YouTube, we actually deliver more than just regurgitated information. We're actually collecting the data with our own equipment from various parts of the world, and I think that if nothing else, is worth a bit of support. And you know what, we are with you guys 100%. We are with you all through this, and hopefully we will find a solution. There is a rainbow at the end of this road for us all. Guys, links are down there. Become a patron, why not? As always, I'll say what I usually do: you take care of your loved ones. Some strange times we're in right now. As always, bye for now.